What's up, YouTube? Welcome to ExceedTheHype.com. Alright, it's your boy Lucrecio coming at you with another video. So, with the NBA season coming fast in the near future, I thought it was time to go into the past, alright, and talk about Chris Webber, alright, Chris Webber's legacy and his Hall of Fame resume, which I like to call a curious case for Chris Webber. Now, Chris Webber is, in a lot of ways, the forgotten big man in the NBA, alright? When you think of big men and you think of the early 2000s and things of that nature, or even the late 90s, you tend to think about people like, Karl Malone was still there in the late 90s, but you also think about people like Kevin Garnett, that was during his come up, Dirk, obviously Tim Duncan, who stands alone on a list of power forwards at the #1 spot, with no one really that close to him. And, you think of guys like that. But one name that you probably think of eventually, but not right away, most people don't think of Chris Webber. Now, in context, Chris Webber, during that time period, was up there with those guys, all right? A lot of people like to point to championships and things of that nature. When you talk about Dirk, yeah, Dirk obviously had the championship in 2010 over the Miami Heat, which was very impressive, which he led that Dallas team. The Dallas team that was based around him, of course, led that team with the help of Jason Kidd, agent Jason Kidd, and Tyson Chandler being the defensive anchor to the championship. Very impressive. A lot of people, so Dirk's up there in the all-time list as well. Also, people want to think of Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett, in my opinion, had a great career in Minnesota, even though he was first rounded out for the vast majority of it, with the exception being the year that Sam Cassell and Latrell Sprewell came to assist him. His championship is a little bit less impressive than Dirk's, in my opinion. And that's only because the truth, Paul Pierce was really the driving force behind that championship that was won in Boston, with Ray Allen there as well as Rajon Rondo during his come up. But, Kevin Garnett is also looked at as one of those top power forwards all time. But where does Chris Webber rank in that list? Now, most people will rank him below those guys. Maybe rightfully so, because he didn't have the hardware. But how much was the talent drop-off from those guys to Chris Webber? And I don't think it was that much, all right? And I'm going to talk about that a little bit going forward. Now, when you rank those guys, and I'm going to focus a lot on Tim Duncan, Chris Webber, Kevin Garnett, Dirk. All right. Karl Malone was kind of not really in that era. He's more the golden age with Barkley and Jordan and all those guys, Reggie, all those guys. But these guys were the ones on the come up, late 90s, early 2000s. Even though Chris Webber came, was a little bit older than those guys. So let's see. Obviously, Tim Duncan stands alone, right? And then you have Kevin Garnett and Dirk in there somewhere together, and then you have Chris Webber somewhere in there. All right, so let's look at why Chris Webber is just as good and will be a Hall of Famer. He was great offensively. He was a very great offensive player from the post. All right, very skilled offensive player in general, passing, post play, mid-range jumpers, out to 17 feet or whatever. Very, very skilled player. Could step all the way out almost to the three-point line. Well, he even had a couple games where he would hit multiple threes. He was very unselfish. He was a great rebounder. He was very, very, very unselfish. And unselfishness is what was very important with that Kings team. All right. They were really based around, early with Vlade. Vlade was also a very good passing big. They were very based around ball movement, all right? Rick Adelman's, motion offense or whatever. It was a lot of bigs and the ball movements from the bigs especially. Very, very effective. In my opinion, the team should have won at least one championship, all right? They literally got cheated, and admittedly so, by Tim whatever, the disgraced referee or whatever, that cheated them out of Game 6 in that series versus the Lakers, where the winner would have went on to, beat the Nets basically, because the Nets were just like tuna out of the East or whatever, easy come, easy go. So he's a very good leader. He got cheated out of a championship, and in my opinion, the championship that he would have won had he won that year would have been somewhat equivalent to Dirk's championship, which would put him right up there with those guys. He was the focal point. Naturally, that was a good team because even after they got rid of Jason Williams and whatever, and replaced Vlade with Brad Miller and what have you, they brought Mike Bibby in, and Mike Bibby was excellent. Mike Bibby was way better than Jason Williams. Very aggressive offensively. Was their driving force. Obviously. What do you call it? Salt water in the veins or whatever. Mike Bibby was that guy at that point. Another thing people tend to forget about Chris Webber. Chris Webber was a winner. All right. He led 3 different teams to the playoffs. All right. He led when he first got to the league. He was drafted by Golden State. Golden State went to the playoffs. He went to Washington, played for Washington. Washington went to the playoffs. He came to Sacramento. Didn't want to go there, but came anyway. Sacramento went to the playoffs a bunch of years in a row and almost won a championship. So he was the guy that you could add to a team and be the focal point and have that team have a lot of success. All right. Another thing is he has a All-NBA first team selection, which that year, which I believe was like 2001, he was actually selected over Dirk, over KG, and Karl Malone. All right. He was a first teamer along with Tim Duncan. He was a 3-time All-NBA second team, and he was a 1-time All-NBA third team selection. So naturally, it's a very, very impressive resume. You wonder with his talent level if he could have had a more successful career, and that's kind of the question. Now, if you wanted to take the case against Chris Webber, if you don't think Chris Webber is a Hall of Famer, there's a couple things that you would probably look at. One of them being his durability. All right, out of the 1,198 games that were possible for him to play during his NBA career, he played 831 of those games. He only had 5 seasons where he played over 70 games. He had a lot of injury problems over the course of his career. Missed a lot of games over the course of his career. He played 15 seasons, which is a lot, which is obviously a very long NBA career, of course. But it seems like his production in the NBA after about the 10th season really, really dropped off. And he didn't have the longevity of those other guys that I want to mention with him. The Tim Duncan, obviously Tim Duncan is going on 20, well, not quite 20 years. He's been in there for a while. I think it's going on 17 or whatever. I'd have to check on that. But also Kevin Garnett's been there forever, coming out of high school. Dirk's, they had really long careers or whatever. And they had, not as many durability issues as a Chris Webber. And also, Chris Webber's a 5-time All-Star. I think a player of his talent level and a player of his caliber should have been an All-Star more than 5 times. So there is a case you can make against him being, a Hall of Famer. But he does have his jersey retired by the Sacramento Kings. He's one of their best players in franchise history. He had a stretch that was excellent. And he had a lot of success in his career, even without winning the championship, even though technically you could make the case that he would have won that year. But ultimately, I believe Chris Webber will easily make the Hall of Fame. I do believe he's better than a lot of players that are in the Hall of Fame as we speak. So, Chris Webber, in my opinion, Hall of Fame probability, 90%. All right. Definitely deserves it. Great player all time. And also, now that he's not even playing anymore, great media personality, TV personality, whatever you want to call him. Anyway, that's the Chris Webber video I plan to do. Maybe, depending on how the next couple weeks go, I'll probably do another one. Maybe Grant Hill as a one I want to go ahead and touch on. But yeah, continue to subscribe, continue to like the video, comment if you disagree, if you agree, let me know what you think. All right. See you next time.